The story begins in 1919, just after World War I ended. The world is now at peace. In Australia, a farmer named Joshua is introduced. The region he lives in suffers from severe water scarcity, but he is an expert at finding water underground. Joshua returns home, where his wife tells him their 3 sons are waiting for him inside, eager to hear a story. However, when Joshua enters, there is no one there. The truth is that he lost all 3 of his sons in World War I, where they had fought for their country. His wife, however, refuses to accept their deaths since their bodies were never found. Joshua, on the other hand, has accepted reality. His sons went to war 4 years ago, and with the war now over, they would have returned by now if they were alive. His wife repeatedly tells him, "You are an expert at finding water in this barren land, yet you have not been able to find our sons." Joshua has no answer to her questions. He is deeply saddened but keeps his grief to himself. That night, lost in sorrow and memories of his sons, he falls asleep. The next morning, he wakes up to find his wife missing. Searching for her, he finds her dead body in a nearby pond. Devastated, he buries her and makes a promise to find his son's remains and bury them beside his wife's grave. With this mission, he sets out on his journey. On the way, Joshua remembers how he once got caught in a storm with his 3 sons. He had covered them with a sheet and given them courage. He always remembers his sons. After a long journey of 3 months, he reaches Istanbul. A boy approaches him and invites him to stay at their hotel, promising good food and accommodation. However, Joshua is eager to reach Gallipoli, where his sons had fought in the war. He goes to a police officer and asks for permission to go to Gallipoli. The officer tells him that no ordinary person is allowed there and that he must get permission from the British. Before Joshua can think further, the boy, whose name is Ahan, grabs his bag and runs away. Joshua chases him, and Ahan stops near his hotel, returning the bag while insisting that Joshua stay there. Joshua agrees. He meets Ahan's mother, a widow whose husband was killed in the war. When Joshua says he is from Australia and has heard there are empty rooms, she coldly replies that no rooms are available, because the war in which she lost her husband was fought against Australia. Just then, another man arrives and gives Joshua a room key. Later, when Ahan's mother brings him a towel, she suggests he explore the city. Joshua replies that he is not here for sightseeing but has an urgent mission. He must reach Gallipoli as soon as possible. Hearing the name Gallipoli, Ahan's mother is shocked and tells Joshua that only spirits remain in Gallipoli. It has been reduced to ashes. Joshua remains silent. The next morning, he visits the British headquarters, showing an officer photos of his 3 sons. He explains that he wants to retrieve their remains and bury them beside his wife's grave. However, the British officer refuses, saying thousands of bodies are buried there, and that is now their home. Joshua cannot go without British permission since Australia was part of Britain's alliance in World War I. Disheartened, Joshua returns to the hotel. Meanwhile, protests erupt across the city, with people rallying against the British, shouting slogans. Many have lost loved ones in the war, fueling their resentment. At the hotel, Ahan's grandfather asks Joshua about his wife. Joshua replies that she has passed away. Ahan's mother, also present, asks about his children. Joshua remains silent, and she understands that something tragic has happened. She advises him to find a fisherman who, for a fee, can secretly take him to Gallipoli. Grateful, Joshua gathers his belongings and leaves the hotel. As he departs, Ahan runs after him and hands him a photograph, saying, "This is my father. He went to the Gallipoli War years ago and never returned. If you find him, please bring him home." Joshua realizes that Ahan's father also died in the war, making his mother a widow, perhaps the reason for her hatred toward Australians and the British. Joshua sets out on his journey. As he travels by boat toward Gallipoli, a soldier spots him. The colonel orders the soldier to bring him forward. When Joshua is brought before the colonel, he explains that a special team has been assigned to locate and identify the bodies of Australian and New Zealand soldiers, as both nations fought against the Middle Eastern forces here. The colonel promises that if they find any trace of Joshua's sons, they will place a memorial plate in their honor. Joshua, however, insists that he knows exactly where his sons were last seen. As he pulls out a map to show the location, a photo of his sons falls to the ground. The colonel recognizes them immediately and tells Joshua to return, assuring him they will inform him if they find anything. But Joshua refuses to leave. He sits silently on the beach, waiting. The colonel, moved by his determination, orders a soldier to give him a blanket and food. A Turkish major, who is assisting the colonel due to his knowledge of the battlefield, observes the situation. Though they once fought against each other in the war, the major tells the colonel, "Joshua is the only father who has come here searching for his sons. I know the location where they fought." Finding them will be difficult, but we should take a chance. The colonel agrees with the major, and Joshua is taken to the location where his sons fought. A flashback shows the battle, Joshua's 3 sons fighting bravely. Suddenly, his son Arthur steps on a mine, triggering an explosion that injures him. His 2 brothers rush to protect him, providing cover fire, but they are soon shot down by enemy bullets and die as martyrs. Back in the present, Joshua's 2 sons' remains are found. He wants to see them, but the colonel refuses. However, Arthur's remains are still missing. Joshua decides to take his 2 sons' remains back to Australia, but the colonel convinces him to bury them there, saying, "This is their home now." Joshua agrees and gives them a proper burial with full rituals. That night, he dreams that Arthur did not die in battle but is still alive. The next morning, the major visits Joshua, having noticed his surname. He shows Joshua a list of surviving prisoners and says, "Some people are still in captivity. Your son Arthur might be alive among them." Overjoyed, Joshua hurries back to Ron's hotel and then to the British headquarters, pleading for help to find his son. However, the British officer refuses, scolding him, "I warned you not to go to Gallipoli, yet you did." He confiscates Joshua's passport and declares, "On Thursday, I'll ensure you're sent back to Australia." Joshua returns to the hotel, where Ron's mother no longer hates him. She realizes he has also lost his sons in the war, just as she lost her husband, leading his wife to take her own life. She opens up to Joshua, saying, "My husband went to war and never returned, but I still believe he is alive. If I admit he's dead, his brother, who lives with us, will force me to marry him. He's desperate to make me agree, but I don't want to." Joshua understands her helplessness. The next day, her husband's brother tries to hit her. Joshua intervenes, throwing him aside. Furious, the man warns, "I will take my revenge." Ron's mother, however, is also upset with Joshua. "You've made things worse. Leave our hotel." As Joshua steps out, the angry brother returns with his men and brutally beats him. Just then, a sergeant arrives, announcing, "The major has summoned you." Joshua is taken to him. The major explains, "The Greeks have attacked our country, capturing many territories. The British refuse to help, so we must fight alone. We leave tomorrow morning, and I believe your son may be among the prisoners there. You can come with us." Joshua agrees, but first returns to the hotel. Ron's mother apologizes, saying, "Your bag was left behind. My son Ron placed it in your room." He talks to Ron's mother about many things. The next morning, the British officer arrives to send Joshua back to Australia. But before they reach him, Ron's mother helps him escape. He rushes to the major, and they all leave on a train. On the way, the major shows Joshua a wooden bat, saying, "I found this on the battlefield. I think it's a weapon." Joshua laughs, explaining, "It's not a weapon, it's a cricket bat. It's used for playing a game." He then teaches Arzan the rules of cricket. As they continue their journey, they see a burning village. They realize the Greeks have attacked. Soon, the Greeks attack their train too, killing almost everyone. Only Joshua, the major, and a sergeant survive. Since Joshua is Australian, they decide to deal with him later, but they prepare to execute the major. As the Greek officer is about to kill the major, Joshua attacks him with the cricket bat. Joshua and the major manage to escape, but the sergeant is killed. They reach a town where Joshua sees a windmill. He has seen this windmill many times in his dreams. He realizes it's a sign his son Arthur must be here. He asks the townspeople about Arthur, but they are all fleeing out of fear of the Greeks. Someone tells him, "The man who built that windmill is in the church." Joshua runs to the church and finally finds his son, Arthur. Seeing his father, Arthur is overwhelmed with emotion, but he is deeply traumatized. Arthur confesses, "One of my brothers survived the battle but was badly wounded. He was in unbearable pain and begged me to end his suffering. After his repeated requests, I had to grant him peace. I have lived with that guilt ever since. That's why I never came home." Joshua, with tears in his eyes, says, "Without you, I have no one left in this world. Your mother is no longer alive. You must come home with me to Australia." Arthur finally agrees. Just then, Greek soldiers attack. They are the same soldiers who attacked the train. The major arrives and says, "We need to escape now." Joshua and Arthur manage to flee safely. They return to Ron's hotel, where Ron's mother is overjoyed to see Joshua reunited with his son. In the final scene, she makes coffee for Joshua. He drinks it with a warm smile. It's clear that he and Ron's mother now have feelings for each other. And with that, Joshua's journey comes to an end. Hope you enjoyed this story.